We have a story for you today that is it's as tragic as it is deeply disturbing. It's a case that really forces you to look at the absolute darkest side of what a parent can be capable of. This is the story of the freezer mom. I mean, really think about that for a second. How long can an unimaginable horror stay hidden, literally feet away from where a family eats, sleeps, lives their life? Well, for one family in Detroit, the answer was years. So let's set the scene. We're in Detroit, it's March of 2015, and for all intents and purposes, it's just another ordinary day. Court officers show up at an apartment to serve an eviction notice. You know, it's a routine task, something they've probably done hundreds, if not thousands of times before. But this one was going to be different. As they're clearing out the apartment, they find this deep freezer. And it's heavy, really heavy, and it's sealed shut. The mother who lived there, a woman named Mitchelle Blair, she's nowhere to be found. The officers, they've got to move this thing, so they work at it and they manage to get it open. And right there, in that moment, that ordinary day just completely shatters, and a nightmare that's been hidden for years comes spilling out into the open. Inside, they don't find one, but two. Two frozen bodies, wrapped in plastic. It was two of her own children, Stoni Ann Blair and Stephen Gage Berry. And the person who did this, the person who put them there, was their own mother. The voices of Stoni and Stephen were silenced in the most horrific way you can possibly imagine. So it's up to us to make sure they're heard now. If you believe that their stories and stories like them absolutely need to be told, please just take a moment and subscribe. It's how we make sure these victims are never, ever forgotten. Okay, let's get into how this was even allowed to happen. That discovery on March 24th, 2015, it sent absolute shockwaves through the entire community. The biggest question on everyone's mind was, how? How could this happen? The police found Mitchelle Blair pretty quickly. She was hiding out in a neighbor's apartment with her two other surviving children. And she didn't deny a thing. She confessed almost immediately, which just set the stage for one of the most horrifying cases that city had ever seen. To really understand what happened here, we have to go back. We have to go behind the closed doors of that apartment, a place prosecutors would later call, and rightfully so, a house of horrors. The amount of time here is it's staggering. This wasn't some sudden crime of passion. Stephen was murdered back in 2012. His body was hidden in that freezer for 3 years. And then his sister, Stoni, was killed a year later and placed right on top of him. The two surviving children were forced to live with that gruesome secret day in and day out. The details of the abuse are just stomach-turning. Blair actually pulled the kids out of school so no one would see the injuries. Stephen went through weeks of torture. He was starved, he was beaten, he had boiling water thrown on him. His life finally ended after she forced him to drink window cleaner. A year later, Stoni was killed in a similarly brutal way. And all this time, when neighbors would ask, "Hey, where are the kids?" Blair would just make up an excuse. This quote from the surviving daughter, it's just absolutely haunting. Can you even imagine that kind of daily terror? Living in a home where your sibling's tomb is a household appliance that you have to see, you have to walk past every single day. It's a level of psychological torture that's almost impossible to wrap your head around. So when Mitchelle Blair finally stood in front of a judge, any hope for answers, any hope for even a shred of remorse, it just evaporated. Instead, the world saw a kind of defiance that was just truly chilling. Blair's entire defense was this claim that she was protecting her youngest son. She said Stoni and Stephen had abused him, but the investigation found zero evidence, nothing. It was a complete lie. In fact, her surviving daughter later testified that their mother had threatened and coached the youngest sibling over and over until he repeated the fabricated story. In court, Blair didn't even try to make excuses. During her guilty plea, her words were just cold. She admitted, "I definitely meant to kill my daughter." She said she would do it again, and that she felt no remorse. None. The judge, trying to process this unbelievable lack of humanity, made this incredibly powerful statement. She looked right at Blair and said, "You imposed the death penalty on your own children." And Blair's response? Just 2 words. No hesitation, no emotion. "I did." And with that, she sealed her own fate, life in prison with absolutely no chance of parole. So with the killer sentenced, the focus of the story has to shift. It moves to the two children who somehow survived that house of horrors. I mean, how do you even begin to come back from something like that? For the two children who survived, the road ahead was and is a long one. But they found a new, loving home with relatives who adopted them. They started extensive therapy right away to try and process trauma that is just unimaginable. And they went back to school. Such a simple, normal act, but for them, it was a huge step. Their journey is just a testament to this incredible resilience in the face of absolute evil. You know, when I look back at this case, it's one of those that just sticks with you. The cruelty itself is one thing, but it's the cold, calculated way she just lived with that secret. That's what I find so deeply, deeply unsettling. For 3 years, this mother kept up a facade while her children were frozen just a few feet away. The only light in this incredibly dark story is the strength of those surviving kids. And it leaves you with this haunting question, doesn't it? How many other tragedies like this are still hidden behind closed doors, just waiting for something as simple as an eviction notice to bring them into the light? I'd really like to know what you think down in the comments. Thank you so much for taking the time to hear this story with us. I know these conversations are tough, but they are so important. Please subscribe and hit that bell so you don't miss our next explainer. We really appreciate you being here. We'll see you for the next story.